Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Board Exam Study Time podcast for physical therapy, the Best PT podcast. I'm your host, Alan Fredendahl. I'm a third-year student from the University of Michigan Flint. I'm also the Chief Operating Officer at the Institute of Clinical Excellence, which is a physical therapy continuing education company. So this is the first of many episodes. This introductory episode will cover the background of the exam itself, some study tips, as well as breaking down the material involved in the test. So this podcast will always remain free. My goal with this podcast is to help those students who are auditory learners or who, like me, spend a long time each day commuting to clinic. So I have about a 1 to 2 hour one-way trip every day. So that's a lot of time I could be spending studying that I can't normally, because right now there's no recorded material available for the MPTE. So my goal is to keep these episodes short but well organized, breaking down into different subtopics within each of the systems covered on the MPTE. I'll also be providing the outline that I've made for each episode in the show notes for each episode. So if you're on iTunes or an Android app, check out the show notes. These will also be on YouTube with a link to the outline. Whenever possible, I'll provide videos, pictures, and tables that are referenced. This material is coming from a number of different sources: the Score Builder study book, the Therapy Ed study book, all of the different textbooks that material is drawn from for the exam, as well as my own notes from PT school and other outside textbooks. Let's get into the format really quick. So the MPTE is 250 questions separated into 50 question blocks. The important thing here is that once you go past each 50 question block, you cannot return back to a previous block. You can return to questions within that block though. You have 300 minutes that starts from the time you begin, with one 15-minute break scheduled after the second block, so after the first 100 questions. Keep in mind, though, that you're not likely to have the full 15-minute break. You will need to be escorted out of the room, re-fingerprinted, re-photographed, etc. before you can exit, and then you'll also need to do the same thing when you come back in with the 15-minute timer running for the whole thing. So you're more likely to have about 5 to 10 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Besides that, you can take a break whenever you want, but the timer does not stop. So the pace for that is about 72 seconds per question. Only 200 of the 250 questions are graded, but you won't be able to tell which 50 are the validation questions. You need 600 out of 800 points to pass, but it's different for every exam and changes year by year. You may or may not be required to bring your own earplugs. Noise-canceling headsets may be provided. You may or may not be allowed to be chewing gum. You're most definitely not likely to be allowed to bring a drink in, and you may or may not be allowed to bring snacks in. You also may or may not be allowed to stand up from your computer to stretch or to practice movements related to test questions. And the entire time you're in the testing room, you will be video recorded, and that information will be stored. And the FSBPT reserves the right at any time to prevent you from ever sitting for the exam again if caught cheating or manipulating the test. So don't do anything stupid. The test is broken down into majority, about 72%, regarding examination, evaluation, differential diagnosis, prognosis, and intervention of the musculoskeletal, neuromuscular, and cardiopulmonary systems. No exam questions about metabolic, endocrine, GI, or system interaction questions will be on the test, and there will be no questions regarding system interaction intervention questions. Outside of musculoskeletal, neuromuscular, and cardiopulmonary, there's also the lymphatic system, integumentary system, metabolic system, endocrine system, gastrointestinal system, GU system, and system interaction questions, which relate to conditions that affect multiple systems, such as cancer. There will also be additional questions regarding medical equipment, therapeutic modalities, safety, research, and professional responsibilities. So some general strategies for choosing the right answer. Always keep in mind the patient's physiological needs come first. So a patent airway, water, food always come before safety, which comes before well-being considerations, which comes before emotional or social needs. Make sure you look out for keywords such as most, best, initial, first, or contraindicated. Identify answer choices that are opposites and seek to eliminate both. If you cannot eliminate one of the opposites, that's most likely the answer. Eliminate answers that deal with very, very rare, unusual conditions, body parts, or situations. So it's highly unlikely to be the answer if it's a condition that you've never heard of before. When choosing an answer, look for duplicate answers. So look for answers that say the same thing in different ways. Identify answers that are equally plausible, as they both likely can be eliminated. And look for answers that address the emotional or well-being of a patient. So choices that are too positive, too optimistic, or too reassuring of a patient's outcome should be eliminated. And when you're looking for your answer to a question, always keep in mind, what would the perfect independent physical therapist do? So the perfect PT would never miss anything on the evaluation, would never wait until the 4th treatment visit to write goals, etc. Always choose the most direct answer, so avoid answers that have you go through an intermediary. So you would not report a fall to a nurse first or type up a incident report. You would obviously transfer the patient immediately back to their chair or bed before you do any of that. And finally, in closing, do not use this podcast as your only study method. You have been in college for at least 7 years. You've been in school for probably at least 20 years. So study the majority of the time with whatever method you've used that has gotten you the best results these past years. This podcast is simply meant to be a supplement when you need a break, you need to change study styles, or you're stuck in the car commuting. And just a final note, when I go over rote memorization items such as muscle actions, which you'll hear in the coming episodes, I will repeat them multiple times, so the audio track isn't skipping, that's just me repeating it multiple times for your memorization ability. Episode 2 will start next, dealing with the musculoskeletal system. Thank you.